it's Chantal Plowman, and you are watching Wild Wednesday TV. We are women igniting life streams. So it's the start of summer holidays, and it got me to thinking of traveling. And I was thinking of some of my past travels and all the things that I experienced and learned from them. So one of my biggest learning experience was when I traveled to Southeast Asia when I was in my early 20s. I had wanted to travel but didn't have a close friend who was able to go with me. I'd had an acquaintance who was traveling in Indonesia, so we made plans to travel together for a couple of months. So even that plan was a little scary for me as I set off on my own for 26 hours in transit from Calgary all the way to Kuala Lumpur to Singapore, and I was so relieved and grateful to meet my friend at the airport in Singapore and have the flop house that my friend had arranged for us to stay in for our first few nights. But after 2 weeks of traveling up the coast of Malaysia together, I knew that I had to make a choice. I could play it safe and continue to travel with my friend if I was willing to compromise having the travel experience that I wanted, or I could be brave and venture out on my own and do the things that I really wanted to do. So it may sound like an obvious choice, but at the time I was petrified to set off on my own. I'd never traveled completely on my own before, and certainly not in such a foreign place so far from home. And at the same time, I knew I hadn't traveled halfway around the world just to play it safe and be unhappy. So I made my decision, and me and my friend agreed to part ways when we reached Kota Bharu, a city on the northeast border between Malaysia and Thailand. So I would go north to Thailand and my friend would go south and return back to Indonesia. So I hadn't planned on going to Thailand, so I spent about a week waiting for my visa to come through to enter the country. And the day after my visa came through, my friend and I said our goodbyes, and I boarded a bus that would take me to the Thai border. So as I climbed on the bus, it felt like every passenger was staring at me. I seemed to be the only obvious tourist on the bus. I sat scrutinizing my travel Bible, Southeast Asia on a shoestring, and went over and over the itinerary I had set for myself. When the bus reached its final destination, I got off and started walking down the main street. I noticed a lot of curious stares from the locals on the street and realized none of the other passengers from the bus were going in my direction. They were all headed in the opposite direction from town. I realized the border crossing must be in the opposite direction. I was trying hard to look like I knew what I was doing, but I totally gotten off to a shaky start. I quickly reversed my direction and caught up with some of the passengers as we crossed the border. I was holding my breath as they examined my paperwork, hoping everything was in order. And as we came through the Thai side of the border, a group of young boys on motorbikes approached me asking if I wanted to get a ride into town to get currency exchange. I hadn't even considered that I would have to exchange my Malaysian ringgit into Thai baht. That's how green I was. And I saw some older Englishmen who I had met at one of the guest houses in Kota Bharu ahead of me, and they said they were getting a ride with these young boys to the bank and that I should too. I'm embarrassed to say that my young driver actually intimidated me because he was so confident and cocky, and to my amazement, he seemed to be flirting with me. My senior companions just laughed and asked me where I was going. And when I told them I was going to Hat Yai, they advised me which train I should take to my destination. I was disappointed I couldn't tag along with them because they were going on an express train to Bangkok. Well, we'd no sooner paid our motorcycle escorts when my flirtatious driver was yelling at me to run to my train that was just about to leave. I would have dismissed it as advice, but the Britishman seconded the motion and told me to run for the train. I wasn't even sure it was the right train, and I wondered how they knew it was the right train. I don't even remember if I purchased my ticket then or if I bought it on the train, but I do remember racing with my heavy backpack that was weighing me down and jumping on the train just moments before it left the train station. I literally exploded onto the train that was packed to meet eyes of my fellow passengers scrutinizing this pathetic, sweaty ragamuffin whose eyes must have been as big as saucers. I felt like I was in a movie. The train was packed with people, all forms of luggage, animals, food, furniture, all standing in the aisles beside the lucky few people who did have a seat. There wasn't even a railing for me to hold on to as I tried my best to assume like a surfing position to keep my balance with my heavy backpack as the train lurched forward. And I wondered, how had I gotten to this moment? Was I going to be lost in the middle of Thailand? Is this what comes from being brave and venturing on your own? I was pretty much on the verge of tears, and it must have shown because after about 15 minutes, some kind people made room for me on the edge of their seat, and I could put down my heavy pack. And after an hour or so, I was actually starting to relax and dozed off, and I was abruptly awakened when my fellow patrons bounced me off the seat as they started throwing boxes out the train window. We were pulling into a station, and when we came to the stop, uniformed men entered the train and gave everyone a thorough examination. I was pretty sure I was in the middle of a drug smuggling operation. I don't think I even breathed until the police left the train. And then the box throwers settled back down in their seat and let me resume my spot. Needless to say, I didn't doze off after that shot of cortisol pulsing through my veins after that scare. So my next scare came when we reached a stop where the whole train disembarked except for me and one other passenger. So each stop had the name of the city or town in Thai script with an English name underneath. It did not look like the name of the city I was headed to, but I didn't trust myself. I was about to get off the train and thought to ask the other passenger if we were in Hat Yai, and I don't know if they understood English, but they shook their head when I said Hat Yai. I wasn't sure if that meant it wasn't my stop or they didn't understand me, but I stayed on the train and held my breath again until I finally reached my destination. So when I got off the train, once again, I tried to look like I knew where I was going because I didn't want to be a target for thieves, but I was really no better than when I got off the bus earlier that day and I was headed the wrong way. I looked for the names of any of the streets I'd memorized from my guidebook. I was literally praying to find one of the guest houses that I had read about in my book. And after about 15 minutes of blind wandering, I found a name that I recognized. It wasn't the place I had planned to go to, but I practically skipped up the stairs to reception area because I was just so happy to find this place. There was a seating area for guests, and as I entered it, I saw two Swedish girls chatting with each other. I practically accosted them in my effort to befriend them. I ended up spending the next week traveling with them, and they really helped me transition into a more comfortable traveling experience as I gained knowledge and confidence for the rest of my journey. The rest of my trip was filled with ups and downs and more misadventures, but in retrospect, that trip to Asia and Australia was one of the best experiences of my life. And when I reflect on that entire trip, that first day on my own as I entered Thailand was one of the scariest and most uncomfortable experience of the trip. Yet it is the one that made me grow the most. And I realized that if I could face my fear of the unknown and somehow make it through it, I could do just about anything. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't easy, and that's what made it great. It was hard for me, and I did it. I was totally outside of my comfort zone. So that is one of the experiences that I grew most from. So sometimes when I have to face a new challenge, I think of that first day on the train and remind myself that I can do difficult things and grow from them. We all go through challenging situations in our lives. My train experience might be small compared to some of the challenges you have faced in your life. Whenever you have to navigate a challenging experience and come out on the other side, you are stronger, expanded, and better than you were before. So I would love to hear from you. So I talked about a challenging experience for me and what it did for me. What's one challenging experience that you have had to go through? When you reflect on making it through that experience, what does that tell you about yourself and what you are capable of? Leave us a comment below and let us know. And join us at our after party, womenignitinglifestreams.com, where all the best conversations can happen. Go to our media tab and comment below this video. And when you're there, if you're not already, be sure to subscribe and become a true wild woman.